Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for making time. Thank you for joining us on at least this last slot, the last show of 2020. We're going to go big. We're going to go to space. We're going to talk about deep tech. That's what we're going to do today on the show. And today we have a good sizable panel. So again, I think everyone is here, and without further ado, I'm going to just start off straight away to start. Let them introduce themselves. So I'm Terrence, this is Latoken, and you are now on VCTV. So I'm going to go around the panel. Tushar, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a bit where you're from and the companies that you represent.
Thank you, Terence. I come from a corporate finance background, have worked for corporates like Deloitte and Touche, where I was handling the private equity practice. Then I've handled around $100 million of investments at Brand Capital, which is a fund of the Indian media group Times of India. I've also raised humongous amounts of debt, or around $2.5 billion for Systema, the Russian company's India unit, MTS India, and was CFO with a company owned by Guggenheim Partners called DLI. In the last 5 to 6 years, I managed my two companies, Consultancy Ventures and Saffron First. Consultancy Ventures is more of a hand-holding kind of company, guiding investments into startups and growth companies. And Saffron First is an angel fund representing around 38 high net worth individuals. We invest across technology and across geographies like Dubai, US, UK, Singapore, and India.
Great. Thank you and welcome on board, Tushar. Thank you for making it on the show today. Irina, sorry, how rude of me. Please introduce yourself and the companies that you represent there.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be back. 2 more days in this year. Goodness, we got to do it right, guys.
Yes.
My name is Irina Litchfield. Many know me as a crypto superwoman. I am founder of Blockchain Cube. Blockchain Cube is a blockchain integration company. We do technical design, integration, basically anything you need for blockchain, we do that. For the most part, integration into the industry is what we end up doing a lot of work during bull runs, which is upon us, which is really, really interesting and exciting. I'm also president of Lumeria. Lumeria is where capital meets innovation. We're driven by democratizing opportunities and investments for people all over the world. I'm also founding advisor of a global securities exchange. A global securities exchange is exactly that, a global securities exchange. I am a senior advisor of Space Fund. The Space Fund is a space dedicated venture capital firm. It's the first one, and actually they just released their first ever security token. They just issued actually a first ever SpaceX security token because they are invested in Space Fund as well. I'm an advisor for ProChain Capital. It's a hedge fund, Bitcoin hedge fund, and I'm advisor of Med Network and Equa. And it's a pleasure to be here. I love this topic of conversation, guys.
Thank you, and thank you for coming on board the show as well. We're going to talk a lot about space, and that's where you're going to cover, Irina. Karthik, over to you. A quick introduction from your end.
Thank you so much, Terence. And as it goes, episode number 37, and it gets better every day. I represent a couple of private offices from the UK. I represent a couple of investment houses in the Middle East, an investment house from India, specifically investing into health tech, fintech, a lot of into the e-commerce space. I'm an advisor to a lot of e-commerce / omni-channel retailers in the Middle East, and I work as a chief operating officer of a large retail business. In terms of my investments in this space, especially in sustainability and certain solutions that are involved as a primary feeder into the space technology or space travel, is where I come in, and obviously one of those diehard space fans. That's how I represent myself.
Very nice. Gary, over to you. A quick introduction from your side.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Terrence. My name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur, now 17 companies. And I love artificial intelligence. I've been doing startups for over 30 years. I'm the CEO and president of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier venture studio out of Silicon Valley. And, I've had 2 unicorns. I was involved in the original management team of Click Software and Eva.ai is a company that I co-founded, almost 5 years ago now. It's unbelievable. Time flies when you're having fun. So, and I'm an investor too. So I invest in all kinds of technologies, but again, centered around artificial intelligence because AI is the new electricity. Great to be
Great.
here.
Thank you. Thank you for making time. And again, as mentioned, the topic is big, large, and we're going to outer space as well. So I'm going to have a co-moderator with me. I'm going to let him introduce himself. This is his first show, so let's welcome him on board as well. Amit, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone on this panel and everyone who's watching this show. My name is Amit Das, and I'm from India. I worked here at Latoken, and this is my first show of co-moderating with Terence. So let's see. This is a great and exciting topic of space and deep tech. I have a few questions for everyone here, and we'll be having an interesting discussion throughout this panel and throughout the session. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you, Amit, and welcome to the show. So again, just a little housekeeping for everyone who's watching us now. Again, we are streaming on various platforms at the moment. So from Twitter, YouTube, even LinkedIn, if I understand correctly now. So do us a favor. It helps the algorithm. It helps keeps you up to date as well. So click that like button, subscribe, and also just leave a bookmark whenever possible if you're interested to kind of look at certain topics and listen to a few of your favorite investors. And do remember, you have the opportunity to come on board and pitch your ideas. Now you have a panel in front of you, and they are VCs out there, prominent names, and ready to kind of listen to your business and give you that advice and even structure the path. So without further ado, I'm going to deep dive into the topic itself, and we're going to talk about space and deep tech. Now, perhaps like many of you out there, my exposure into, let's say, space and deep tech comes from all the movies and images that we see from the Star Wars out there and the Star Treks and all the technology that is possible. So I want to go around and kind of ask, of course, the panel, what is deep tech to you at the moment, and how are you looking at it? So I think, Tushar, let's start by kind of defining the whole thing.
Thanks, Terence. For me, deep technology is any kind of technology which makes it easier to complete a task in very simple terms. But it has assumed huge proportions. So we talk about the dot-com burst of 1999, and then 2008, the Lehman crisis, and now COVID. And all across these years, we have seen the companies which were focused on technology marching ahead. In fact, technology itself is marching ahead. It's reaching our homes, and all the companies. When a friend of mine is at a very senior position in General Electric. So I mean, you talk about 100-year-old company, which is a powerhouse of technology in terms of manufacturing, and it wants to be seen as a tech company because its market cap is $50 billion, and the tech companies which came much later, they are at $1 trillion and $2 trillion. So everybody wants to be seen as a tech company, and the scalability factor in tech is so huge. The adoptions is huge, and the savings and barriers to entry are huge, and intellectual property is a very strong point. So for me, technology is that. In terms of specifics, if we talk about artificial intelligence, computing power has exponentially increased, the power of AI chipsets. Secondly, the amount of training data for AI algorithms is exploding with the advent of data lakes and a fully connected IoT world, which is expanding AI domains and decreasing the cost to train these algorithms. So as you know that all these algorithms need a lot of data to train themselves. So, that is happening. Third, a large number of technological bottlenecks, such as vanishing gradients at the end of the curve, they have been solved over the last few years, massively increasing accuracy and applicability of existing algorithms. And lastly, the decrease in costs for cloud storage and computing, plus the facilitation of distributive collaborative working. It makes combining highly specialized knowledge easier than ever before. So, data crunching is becoming huge. All the companies want to do targeted business, target consumers the right way and very fast. And that's where technology is marching inside our homes.
Thank you for that introduction there, Tushar. Irina, over to you with this one. I think to me, how I look at deep tech is basically something of a technical breakthrough almost, helping humanity kind of save the planet, looking to the future kind of thing. But how would you kind of look at deep tech, Irina? Could you kind of give us an introduction to that?
I really like that, the technology that saves the planet. We really need some of that, a lot of that now. And I would agree with that. It is. I would also say that it's technology that is being implemented, that is maybe past the discovery and is transitioning into implementation. So to me, quantum is deep tech, AI is deep tech. Obviously things that we're doing in space, there's a lot of interesting biotech that's happening. And it all kind of comes together in a big bundle of challenges and in applications when it comes to space. Of course, blockchain is also a deep tech to me as well, because besides the kind of an exchange and cryptocurrency, we still haven't really seen wide adoption of that as well. But it's happening. I believe that this year is going to be, upcoming year, 2021 will be the great year of blockchain implementation.
Thank you. And I kind of agree with that as well. Karthik, moving on to you. I think before the show, I was kind of reading as well, since it's not a topic that I'm familiar on, but there seems to be lots of emphasis when we talk about tech. It seems to be heavily on digital technology itself, but the focus on software, social media, I think it's possibly because it's kind of easy to comprehend, easy to kind of look into. But what's your definition, and how do you look at deep tech in particular?
I look at deep tech as anything that improves the quality of life and bridges between two ends to make things work faster, to make things easier, and to improve sustainability. I look at deep tech primarily from a clean tech, sustainability tech, food tech, and from a robotic tech. Robotic solutions primarily have improved warehousing solutions, have improved health tech, have improved the job or task of getting things done. My friends have already spoken about quantum and artificial intelligence, and when Gary is around, there's little about artificial intelligence that should be spoken by any of us. So I'll leave it to him. But in terms of digital tech, I think the bridge between the consumer and the supplier has been bridged to a very large extent with the digitech coming into place, be it social media, be it the e-commerce, be it the communication platforms of the channel. But the one that I would rather focus on is the sustainability, the clean living, the biotech, the genome tech, which is not only bridging the gap between the past and the future, but is also improving sustainability and improving way of living. Clean ocean technology, oil spill technology that is being built, ozone fiber technology that is being built, or even about removing or clean garbage or junk purification technologies that is being built is the one that is improving the way of living. So that's how I look at deep tech. Obviously, there's a lot of relevance to space tech coming in as well.
I think that's a good way to kind of look at it as well. And I think, Gary, over to you as well. We want to hear your thoughts on how you look at deep tech and space tech in that manner. So give us a bit of your insights and how you look at it.
Yes, that's, we're really pushing the frontier. So I look at it as pushing the frontier. So things like artificial intelligence areas of interest, robotics, blockchain, as Irina said, advanced material science, electronics, biotech, quantum computing, of course, and photonics. So These are just some of the areas, but what I look at is really pushing the boundaries of where we want to go. These emerging incredible technologies that are going to help us live longer and explore. So we're really on the verge in a whole lot of different areas, especially in artificial intelligence, of some significant breakthroughs in areas like unsupervised AI. So it's exciting. And if we're looking at space travel, we've got to have those breakthroughs in order to be able to accomplish the task. And we can't forget, Terrence, that there's an amazing amount of data that's out there. And we need to be able to analyze it at a moment's notice if we're going to be able to explore. We sometimes forget, and I got this right from Christopher Altman, one of the NASA commercial scientists who was on a panel with Irina and myself many months ago. And I've had a couple of follow-ups with him. Just in the Milky Way galaxy alone, there are 6 billion Earth-like planets. It's estimated now there are 200 trillion galaxies in the universe. So there's a whole lot of exploration. We haven't even started the journey. We're not even out of the womb as a humanity in terms of where we're going to go. So it's exciting times.
Yep, you're right. We are definitely in for a ride, and there's lots of advancements coming in as well. I think, Amit, you have a question for the panel earlier.
Yes. So I have one basic question right now regarding DeepTech. The current pandemic situation which we are facing all over the world, that's the coronavirus. So, vaccinations is coming and vaccine is coming in. Different companies are manufacturing these vaccines. And regarding the vaccines, there are a lot of speculations that's going all around the world. I mean, for example, a country like India, having so much of population, vaccinating all the people is not so easy. I mean, how do we leverage this kind of deep tech technology to actually ease out the process of vaccinating? I want to ask this question to all of my panel and want to hear the views from them. So let's start from Tushar.
So, there is a process by which vaccines are made, and it generally requires minimum 2 to 3 years, and not for a wrong reason. I mean, we have seen instances of deaths being happening if the process was short circuited, and let us be aware of the fact that for some diseases like Ebola and you still don't have vaccines. Uh, whatever vaccines are hitting the market, I'm not, kind of questioning them, but heard that many of them need to be stored at minus 20 degrees Celsius and some at minus 70 degrees Celsius. And that kind of infrastructure requires, that kind of vaccination requires a cold chain based infrastructure across. I mean, we are talking about 16% of global population being Indian. And if you count out the neighboring parts of this whole area, then probably 25%. So, vaccinating them is a huge task. And I feel that technology can play a role, but it's more of a community-based approach which has to ultimately come in because there are huge logistic challenges to it. And on the vaccine side, I recently read about an AI algorithm. There are around 129 companies which are startups which have been funded, which are working to shorten the process of getting vaccines to the market and drug discovery. So that is where a lot of technology can come in.
Great thoughts, Tushar. So, so let's move on to Karthik and listen from him. What are his views on actually, how do we leverage blockchain technology as a part of vaccination process? And let's see.
So I get it there. I think one of the key advantages or the way we would look at it is the supply chain clarity from the blockchain perspective, cardinalizing a product to make sure that counterfeits don't get into the market, or even preventing or making sure the right product from the source to the destination is delivered. You would need a lot of robotics as well coming into this in terms of managing the entire value chain. because you're talking about 1.3 billion people across 500 to 600 constituencies, typically 30 states. So you're talking about a logistic distribution network of 3 to 4,000 nodes. You would require, and 3 to 4,000 nodes to be managed over a period of 2 to 3 months, which typically would require intense human effort through a cold chain. And robotics or a warehousing solution would be the right way to look at it. Going forward from here is where the data science would start coming in terms of mapping the impact, the side effects, and the efficacy of the entire vaccination process. Because what has happened is, while everybody has gone from an 80% to a 95% efficacy, and people are continuously claiming a 97% efficacy, the pace at which the strains have been mutating is significantly faster. So what was effective in September, October versus what the strain in the market is in November, December, or maybe even January by the time it reaches the market would be completely different. And hence the response or the entire impact of what the vaccine does and the time it takes for side effects to be seen, or the time it takes to prevent a particular strain from reoccurring, is what needs to be observed. And hence that is where a lot of data science would come into play. And then we'll have to build a lot of predictive modeling to see what are the instances, or what are the other challenges that, or what are the other strains that this vaccine would be able to prevent. So that's where I look at it.
Great. I think thanks for that as well. So I think we have lots of startups coming on the show, again, just to have it kind of focused to them as well. I'm sure they want to know from the VCs and from all of you on the panel today, a very tough question, I think. How do you gauge the commercial readiness of deep tech and space? From all the startups that you see today. I think, Irina, I want to have this question to you. And how do you kind of evaluate that risk factor? Because it's not as easy as it seems. It's not as straightforward, I suppose. It's a long-term investment almost. So how do you go about doing that?
Yes, very long-term investment, especially when it comes to space. It really is a long hurdle. The same way as we do with all the other industries. I would argue that it's much more challenging to do so in earlier stage companies, because there are so many different variables. More mature companies, for the space industry specifically, the beauty of it is that you can go and visit their facilities. You can touch the rockets. We just did the visit for Firefly. It's a space transportation company, and it was amazing. It's a mature company, and they're doing amazing things. Now, they're so far away from realizing their goal of being the transportation company for the space. And that means everything from launch to servicing to actually landing, on the moon, and being present in all of the layers. So that is a little bit of a challenge, because you do have to have a long-term vision. You do have to have ability to see besides the mind that tells you, okay, well, why haven't that happened yet, right? Because that's kind of like the big question that we often hear is that, one, how much more money is this going to cost? Because a lot of deep tech, and especially space, in the space industry, everything is extremely expensive. But the same works for space industry too. For example, this company is doing an amazing job and creating their own advantages that are comparatively inexpensive to do the work that they've been doing. Now, it's all very expensive. Like the space industry is just unbelievable pump of money, and there's no way to go around it. And it needs more money. In order for us to achieve and fulfill what we need to be able to put more money into the space industry. But just the traditional matrix, I think, work the same way. I do think, for example, quantum computing too, a lot of people are very skeptical about it. They don't think that it's something that's going to happen. However, every single every single day, day by day, week by week, month by month, we're arriving to a point to where we do have 4 quantum computers in America. And that is a really great progress. And so with that, we can now look at other companies that are a little bit behind and say, okay, what have they learned? How they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. And Gary, the same question to you as well. How do you gauge the commercial readiness of some of these deep tech startups and also space ventures that you see today? Could you help us out with that?
Yeah, I mean, so we go down through Terrence. Remember, I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania, so we keep it real simple in the country. So, I mean, if you're doing like a Cube rover is one of the latest rovers, a very small 9-pound rover that's developed by NASA. I mean, they're using simulations, so they're doing simulations with a lunar surface. The other thing is, my particular area of interest is artificial intelligence. Obviously, you don't need to be in space to test the AI in terms of all the data, and we're just using, and many times, transportable AI models.
Hmm.
It isn't, the thing is, it's not easy. I mean, a NASA astronaut takes 2 years to go through training. It's not an easy thing, and we're pushing the boundaries of where we want to go with some of the technologies. So, um, test, test as much as you can without being in that particular situation. But the ultimate challenge is you're going to have to test it. You don't want to be going to Mars and say, well, I guess it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge. But I mean, these kind of challenges we've been up to before. I mean, we're going to do the best of our ability to test the limits of it today. But you're right. I mean, this is the unknown. The problem is there a fear of the unknown and what's going to happen in that particular exact situation when we are in space and there is a breakdown. So we're going to go through, we need to go through the permutations and combinations here as much as we can, but there are going to be unknowns and we need to be as prepared as we can. And artificial intelligence, as I said, think of the massive amounts of data. If I have a satellite in space today, the average satellite is downloading about 150 terabytes of data per day and dramatically increasing every year, right? But just in general. So there's a massive amount of data that we have to have. And think how many satellites there are. And now we're going to Mars. Think about all the things, what we're going to encounter in space, whether it be objects coming at us, asteroids, being able to course correct. So, and then, part of the challenge is going to be, what about being lonely in space? So some of the intelligent assistants that are developed now by the European Space Agency to be able to help in the mission. It's not easy being in space for a year in a confined position. I can't even imagine. It'd be like sitting in your dental chair in the dentist's office for a year,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's going to be that interesting, but and then the radiation and all the issues that come around it. I mean, some of the recent technologies taking carbon dioxide and to be able to turn it into oxygen, because of the future, if we're going to live on a planet like Mars, how do we do that?
Right,
So
right.
there's a lot of unknowns, and they're going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how we probe. Are we going to have all the answers to the questions before we go and travel? No, but let me tell you, as I said, there's 6 billion Earth-like planets. Earth-like means within the Goldilocks zone from their star, which means they are potentially inhabitable. So it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting time in this journey. I mean, we're fascinated, right? Everybody looks up to the stars, but we're fascinated with what's really there.
Right,
And
right.
now we're finally able to start the journey.
Yeah, you're right. And Karthik, over to you as well. I want to get your thoughts on commercializing and ROI, because give us that Middle Eastern perspective, perhaps, or some of the examples that you may have seen.
So last 12 months, the Middle East interest in space tech has increased at least 100 times, primarily with UAE's first astronaut gone to the space and come back, and then the way things have changed. But I look at this a little differently. Like Gary said, space has been an unexplored territory And even the people who are exploring it now are either large organizations that have deep pockets or states and governments. So it's still not a consumer space where you will find far too many takers. You would find far too many people in the fray to develop a technology, but there's only space for one guy who comes up with the best innovation. Hence, it's going to be a tapered funnel which opens up into a large revenue stream when you start seeing success with states and governments and large national aeronautic agencies buying into you. But in the Middle East, we have seen a lot of success and a lot of investments now coming into what goes into building a space ecosystem. We wouldn't see a lot of organizations building space probes or rovers or even space capsules, but something as simple as a space suit, which typically used to cost around 37 to 40 million in a space suit, which used to cost 37 to 40 million early in the 2000s, has now come down to around 21, 24, I think around 24, 25 million. Still costs that much. It's still been able to provide you that resistance to challenges in terms of either your oxygen or your temperature or your gases or even your nutrition supply inside, is now being developed by a Saudi company claiming to develop at a cost of around 11 to 12 million and being tried in the next Middle Eastern space mission, which is likely to take off in 2024, 2025. Also, there's a lot of development happening in terms of space nutrition, in terms of space supplements, in terms of space telescopes, as well as energy tapping that comes in from space probes. So self-sufficient space probes, instead of trying to build in compound energy lab capsules from the time you take off, you build energy multipliers that help you build your life into this space, which is what typically the space station's also been working on. Middle East, I think in the next 3 to 4 years, would have significant presence with 2 to 3 probes and 2 to 3 missions planned. I'm not sure about the success rate. Typically, the world has seen 1:9, 1:11. But with the kind of advancements and investments, typically around $3.5 to $4 billion that have gone in this space, I see a lot of investments coming in. ROIs would be an interesting space to watch.
Great. That's great news, actually. Amit, you have a question?
Yes. Great thoughts. Great thoughts by Gary. Great thoughts by Tushar, Irina, and Karthik. Everyone has really, really good thoughts about this. I have a simple, basic question regarding the type of investments that is coming in the next few years regarding space technology. And do we have any remarkable project on the table? From anywhere around the world, maybe it's from India or maybe anywhere on your table. Do you have any space technology and space investments that you have right now which you want to speak of? Over to you, Tushar.
Yeah, okay. So space research has always been the domain of governments and also defense agencies. I mean, we talk about NASA and the Russian agency being blazers in this space, and the ISRO, Indian ISRO has always been a good performer too, but it requires dollops of cash, and that's what Irina was also mentioning. Internet was a development which came straight out of defense research. So because that kind of research requires a lot of money. But if we talk about the money which has gone into space companies, then even during the 2008-2009 downturn, the space industry grew at around 7% per year. And there is almost no correlation between the global economy and the space industry, because the monies there are mostly of the government nature. Things have changed. Things have changed after SpaceX and Amazon and Virgin Group, started showing interest. And one particular, I remember 15, 20 years back, there used to be a company, Iridium, which is still going around. And there was a lot of speculation that Iridium's satellite-based mobile technology will actually kill the tower-based technology. But because it required so much of cash, Iridium went into bankruptcy. So when I talk about providing internet from space through a constellation of satellites, then there are 3 projects which are currently going strong. One is the Starlink project of SpaceX. The other is a Kuiper project of Amazon. And the third one is OneWeb. Now, how difficult things are to send thousands of satellites into space, even if at low Earth orbits, and provide uninterrupted internet access to even virgin locations like Antarctica and the polar region can be seen from the fact that OneWeb filed for bankruptcy. And very recently, OneWeb was taken over 45% equity by the UK government and 45% by the Indian Bharti Airtel group. So, investments are still going strong in the space, and SpaceX is leading that space through the Starlink project. And I'm sure that, we'll see uninterrupted internet, high quality internet at any place possible very soon, maybe within a span of 3 to 5 years.
Great. So yeah, Karthik, what are your thoughts about this on the space tech? Do you have any projects right now?
Like I was mentioning, there is a Saudi company that's already invested into this, and we are not directly, but through a venture house, invested in the food success and nutrition success in the space. But judging space investments through one route would be very, very difficult, and rather we'd be doing a lot of injustice to it. One needs to break the entire space technology into what Gene Roddenberry used to talk about. Typically, space is an unexplored object, and voyages of Starship to explore the unexplored. That's one, which is typically a government or a state subject to go and find out what happens outside the boundaries of Earth. Is there an extraterrestrial life? Then closer to the subject is your Mars and Moon probes, which typically leave every 2 to 3 years, depending on which country wants to go there. Again, it's a country-specific subject, and these are multi-billion-dollar investments. Typically, a probe is a 18 to 20 billion. If you're trying to build a reusable, if you're trying to build a single use, you can get into around 600 to 700 million, depending on what do you wish to achieve from that. There is a space station project as well, which again, Saudi as a government is funding along with 14 other countries. So that's another project that's in the offing. Space travel, Virgin Galactic has done, again, a lot of interest has come in from UAE and Saudi. Obviously, a mid-size or small-size investor or a venture house won't find saying into it. But where a lot of businesses, a lot of houses are coming in is ancillary to these technology, which is creating artificial simulators to ensure that people get trained before they go on to Virgin Galactic's SpaceX modules, or to build in sustainable living in space, which builds the space ecosystem. So apart from the space suit project that we've been talking about, the space nutrition project that we've been talking about, I don't think we have seen a lot of investments in this space, or at least we haven't been we haven't seen instances coming to us.
And I think I want to continue on that point as well. I think as businesses come on in, and if you have some deep tech ideas or space tech ideas to test out, chances are you would need a very different set of tools and even a bridge, a different kind of bridge. So I think this question to you, Arena, I think how can someone in your position, like as a VC, as an investor, kind of bridge that technical founders gap? I mean, you see lots of technical founders there, but then how do you come in with that commercialization part, I suppose?
Yes, and for space industry, it's one of the biggest problems actually is that it's very heavy on technical founders. A lot of people come from NASA and a lot of engineers and scientists, but there's not enough business people. There's not enough people that understand the way fundraising systems work, right? So for example, just a little breakage in the language, when you're speaking to space company and they tell you that they're doing a round, do be ready for them to already have a product, to have a lot of key aspects that would be usually present in about C round in traditional VC world, as well as the size of the raise that they're going to be raising. So be prepared that their raise will be an A round about $100 million, right? So the reason I'm mentioning that is because these are breaks in the communications, and so a lot of space startup companies are ending up kind of not progressing as well because they do not have a marketing team, because they do not have somebody who specializes in fundraising, right? So they do not have investor relations person. Meanwhile, they're dealing with a lot of big projects. but slowly and surely it's happening. I mean, the message is clear. We need more professionals in the space industry, and we need more and more and more of them. And if we fast forward into the future, where we're thinking about settlement on the moon, and where we're thinking about having kind of more commercial space stations, and eventually, doing the land thing and going to the Mars, we need to have people of all kinds of professions. I mean, we need musicians, we need artists, we need teachers, and we need more. And you do not have to be a technologist, you do not have to be scientists to be in the space industry. And I would argue that this is the really great opportunity right now for investors as well to be able to get into the industry, to get into the space, and then also pulling the professionals into the space as well. So one of the things that we're doing is basically constantly asking people to join space industry, because you see these companies, they have a lot of money, and they need to spend that money, and they don't have enough professionals to spend that money on. And so besides the fact that we do need more money for the space projects to expedite the development, we actually need people who understand how to do business in the business world. Because remember, space became a free enterprise only 10 years ago. So we have this 65-year-old industry that operates on government contracts that have been the way you get into the space industry is you have to be scientists, right? So obviously there were some astronauts, and usually they were military people as well, right? So so it was really closed ecosystem. And now this ecosystem has established almost a half a century of operating, and now they're coming into a free enterprise world, and they don't know what to do. I mean, it's just plain and simple. And so there's advisory expertise that's needed. There's the work expertise that's needed. And then, of course, there's smart money that's needed as well. And by smart money, what I mean is money that can allow the expertise of investors that allows these companies to understand how to integrate into the funding vehicles of the world, and not just go with like traditional traditional contracts from governments.
Good point there, Irina. And Gary, the same one as well. Over to you. I kind of just want to get your thoughts on this as well. I mean, how are VCs in the space, or even some of your peers and even yourself, how are you all bridging that technical founders gap versus that commercial gap almost that is always thought to be missing with some of these mad scientists out there? Sorry, you're on mute, Gary.
Yeah. No, let's keep it simple, right? Mm-hmm. So think about the breakthroughs that have come from space: memory foam, baby formula, invisible braces, Velcro were used by the Russians for the spacesuits. I mean, there's tons of innovation that come out of space. And so what we forget about what the applicability of some of those innovations are. So even in my particular area of artificial intelligence. So what we have to look at is, as we're going down through and doing this R&D and developing these incredible technologies, the application of those technologies can be potentially very broad. So that's where it becomes really interesting. So think about hydroponics, right? Growing plants. So how are we going to grow plants on Mars? We need to do the research. So when we talk about, that's where it becomes really interesting. So as we're doing this breakthrough research, the applicability goes broader. So I'm interested in that, and we need to focus on that a bit. So what it does is, but it gives us an opportunity to develop these technologies very quickly where we may not have ever done it before, right? Think about the impact on food, drug discovery. I mean, it goes across the board. How do we do medical treatment in space, right? So cosmonaut gets sick in space. how are we going to treat that particular patient? What kind of technologies? Think about the telemedicine that's going to be needed if they don't have the astronauts or cosmonauts that have those capabilities. Think about data. So we talk about, from my perspective, all the massive amounts of data that a ship is going to need to be able to process to be able to understand what's coming at it, whether or not there's too much radiation coming in, how to course correct. I mean, those kind of things. But again, the application. So I love that. And so, we got places like Techstars that they've got a space accelerator. I'm dealing with, actually have Per Wimmer, who's one of the space explorers, works closely with Richard Branson, Wimmer Space. I've got him coming on. I'm going to interview him in, I guess, 2 weeks. Just spoke to him. There's incredible interest out there. Never before. Arena's right on target. I mean, it's only been a few years that we've had the chance to be able to really commercialize space. And think about, it's already got Bezos, you've got Richard Branson, you got Elon Musk, then you've got countries. So it's an incredible race that's out there today, and these technologies being evolved very, very quickly. Look what's happened with SpaceX just in the last 2 years. It's incredible. So, I'm encouraged by it, and I'm encouraged and intrigued. So on one side, I remember as a kid when I got my first telescope, and I was looking at the moon. And I couldn't believe that I was looking at the moon, and, it's now we've got that opportunity to make those realities become true, right? The ideas that we had, those visions become true. The visions that we had, now we have a possibility to be able to do it. So it's exciting, but let's look at the broad application of those technologies and how they can serve humanity, not just in space. And that's where it's interesting.
Right, you're right about that, Gary. Tushar, as well, this question for you. What are the learnings that you are kind of noticing from all this space and deep tech work that is coming out?
So, before coming to the learnings, this investments in space have really shot up. In 2010, the VCs made investments were around $78 million across North America and Europe in the space technology. And this year, they've made 69 investments worth more than $4.3 billion. But, the focus is on big money. But, let me just, put it on a comparison basis. The Hollywood movie Gravity, which starred Sandra Bullock, it cost 9 times the money which cost our space agency, Indian Space Agency, ISRO, to send a mission to Mars. So, we are talking about a movie costing 9 times the mission to Mars. So, what China did to manufacturing, the same can be done in space by getting a lot of work done out of cheaper locations, cheaper and quality conscious locations. I mean, the Mars mission was ISRO's first mission and it was a success. So, that kind of a record is there. So, on the other side is the sustainable side of space research. I mean, we have a hole in the ozone layer over Australia and Antarctica. And that's a serious thing. I mean, the lack of ozone layer causes cancer. And so we are talking about all those probes and flights going up and breaching the ozone layer. We have the Paris Accord, but, we have the US backing out of it. So, these are serious issues for a sustainable future. I mean, when we talk about sustainability, it means that a rate of growth which can be maintained without creating other significant economic problems, especially for future generations. So, space research is fine, big money is fine, but if it is used to solve we talk about space debris. I mean, the whole movie Gravity was around space debris. There is so much of space debris now in the lower orbit that there is a genuine problem with the companies sending out satellites. And this space debris falls on the Earth at a speed of 26,000 miles per hour, and it can harm human lives. A lot of it gets burned, So, that's the sustainable angle to. On the Indian side, recently the monopoly of our agency ISRO was taken away by the government. That's a huge positive move we see as investors. And recently, two companies, Agnikul Cosmos and CubeSat, they have signed up to send 100 kilograms satellites to space using ISRO's vehicles and also developing their own launching technology. So that is a big move, and that's what has revitalized the space tech sector in India of late.
Yeah, I think we also read that one as well. Sorry, Karthik, the next question for you. There's an echo from someone. Sorry, Karthik, again, what are the biggest drivers of innovation and growth, you think, for deep tech and space?
So the biggest driver in this space is about commercializing this technology and exploring beyond the unknown space. That's what's driving the change. The change agent or the catalyst to this is primarily going to be government agencies. Catalyst to this is going to be a lot of investment coming in from private sectors that have been opened up. It will be broken down into 4 to 5 different segments. One of them is about making space exploration low cost, making space exploration feasible, and making space exploration or making space travel easier for people. Secondly, a lot of innovation in the space in terms of democratizing space and creating life beyond Earth in terms of trying to find out sustainable living outside. Interstellar started this the way it's been spoken about, but there's a lot of work happening in this space, especially a couple of Australian startups and even the space agency from India is working on this. More importantly, innovation is going to come in terms of making space travel easier and making space travel faster. And that's where this entire change is likely to come in from.
I think I would agree with that as well. And I think we have a few minutes left on the show. I think we covered a few areas, bits and pieces of it. It's a huge topic on its own as well. And for those out there kind of looking at you for advice again, could you kind of speak to them directly or even kind of advise them in terms of how about to go? I think Irina, we wanna learn a bit of some of the programs that you have and almost like those incubators that are coming up. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Well, there's Techstars. They're doing a really great job. They're I would say that they're kind of leading. They're in LA. Interestingly, they do, though they're incubators, they already kind of work with companies that are more mature. There is not so much infrastructure for true startups, but we're starting to see them. There are a couple of venture capitals. Obviously, Space Fund is one. Overall, if you're looking to learn about the industry, I really would recommend checking out Space Ratings. Space Ratings is really great resource that put together by Space Fund. And it really will show you the development of the whole ecosystem altogether. So, for example, you will see that the launch is overrated and overfunded. The servicing in space still needs more development and so forth. So, but I think that that's really great and safe spot because you can find the resources there, and it's on Space Fund, on the Space Fund website. Just scroll down to the Space Ratings and you'll be able to have a really great resources. They contribute to that every single month. And so that's where you can find really dynamic information. And that really applies to kind of a global development as well. So, but overall, what space industry really needs is actually later stage dedicated venture capital. So there's not a fund that directly invests only in the space industry that's C+ round. So and that's problematic because what's happening is the companies are kind of not able to raise funding, and so they go into M&As. And we know what happens with M&As, innovation stops, and for the most part, these companies get killed. And there's, and that's it. So for us to be able to progress the industry, to be able to really go into space and to build in space what we need, we do need more funding. We're pretty covered on as far as the baseline on your AGIL, on your A, B, but once it gets to C plus round, it's becoming much, much, much more challenging, and money is very expensive at that point. And interestingly, that is exactly the point where the companies are about to get into that breakthrough, right? But without funding, they can't continue, so they go and they get acquired. On the books, it looks good because you have the exit of about average of 7 years, but that innovation just basically stops there, right? Because they just kind of become R&D for just yet another big company.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're right on that one as well, Irina. We do see that pattern emerging as well. Gary, the next one for you. Do you think the typical superpowers like US, China, India, Russia, are they leading the way still when we come to new companies, even funding? Or are there any other areas or countries in focus?
I mean, so look at it. I mean, it's moved to the private sector, right? So yes, they're getting some funded, but you've got SpaceX, you got Blue Origin, you got Virgin Galactic. We've really changed in terms of the look. You're right about. There's always been a space race, right from the beginning and during the Cold War. But at the same time, it really helped us move quickly to get to the moon. So, competition does some interesting things, doesn't it? So, from my perspective, what we have is we have more private, Irina said it earlier, we have more private companies that are interested in space. So I'm excited about that. At the same time, there's funding available from governments to be able to support some of these companies. And I'm excited about that. Competition is a good thing. And so, but again, we've democratized opportunities. As I said, AI models that can be used, intelligent assistants to be able to use on a ship could be the same type of artificial intelligence tweak that I use in EVA, the technology we've developed. So they are transportable models. The key is, where does that fit? And it's, in terms of the groundbreakingness of the opportunities, that's exciting. In terms of this whole private endeavor, yes. I talked to Matt Kozloff at who I'm sure Irina knows, at Techstars. They're really cultivating and nurturing these companies. So, and they are private companies. Yes, there is funding that's out there that could be available for them. Sure, absolutely. But it's the first look at Wimmer Space and Per Wimmer. There's opportunities where we're commercializing it. Who wants to be, who wants to say, I'm an astronaut, right? Let's travel. I want to travel in Virgin Galactic just to say I've done it. So, but then think about the ramifications of how that's going to change the way that we travel, right? How we look at, traveling from one point to another and how much faster we can do it at hypersonic speeds. It's fascinating. Let's just say fascinating. Right. And it's, when is it going to, in terms of the impetus for this thing, it's happening today. It's, as we cultivate these private endeavors, it's going to, dramatically shift and speed up how fast these, look at SpaceX, right? If you said 10 years ago, SpaceX was going to do what they do with Dragon, then people wouldn't have believed, well, they didn't believe Elon Musk anyhow with electric cars. So, but look what happens when the private sector gets involved, right? Dramatic shifts and changes. So yeah, it's exciting. And there are, having governmental support and grants and that kind of thing is interesting. And the competition is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And, think about it. We forget about Africa. India's rise. And I mean, it's across the board. People are interested in space. And it's not just, the US and Russia anymore.
Okay. Yep, I think you're right there, Gary, and thanks for that point as well. Ladies and gentlemen of the panel, again, we have just a few minutes left. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go around. I'm going to start with you, Karthik. Speak directly to the people watching us today and now, and who are interested on the topic, who are interested with the idea of pitching to the investors. Go ahead and try to sum up the show with them.
Thank you so much, Terence. As the last show of the year, I think people who seem to be interested in sustainability in space, ancillary industries that associate with the space, specifically the space suit technology, please feel free to reach out. There's a lot of investment happening with us and a couple of others, a couple of other venture funds based out of Saudi. Massive opportunities, $30 to $50 million already pumped in, another 100, 150 likely to be pumped in the next 2 to 3 months. So there is opportunity. Anybody who would want to reach out to us with the right idea, with a very strong desire to act and perform, because the business is such that while 100 would start, only 2 or 3 would reach the end and only 1 would make it commercial success. So there is reason for them to start the race at least.
Thank you, Karthik. Irina?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here again, finishing the year in a great way, talking about my favorite subjects. You can always find me on LinkedIn and Twitter and reach out. Great news happened. U.S. SEC actually extended the rules, and now under the alternative trading systems, you can raise up to $75 million in the primary offering. So,
nice.
I mean, that is something to celebrate for America, for SEC, for them moving forward the opportunities and democratization of opportunities for people here in the US. And I do believe that is going to be a great boost for kind of a global raise as well. And so to me, that is the best way to end the year, because the upcoming year is going to be very, very, very busy for many different industries. And so we are here to assist through best transition to accelerate AI and space and blockchain and quantum and biotech. And thank you so much for being here, for doing this, guys, and just wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Irina. Kind words. Tushar, you have a minute to sum it up. Sum up your thoughts and speak directly to the people watching us now. Tushar, you're muted.
Yeah. Thank you, Terence. It's been lovely, this coming on this VCTV with you, with Sunny, with Gary being a regular. I mean, and Irina and Karthik. Karthik is a powerhouse of knowledge on tech. Off the channel, I have been asking him to give me some reading material. I told Gary, and we talk about galaxies and stuff, and so I'm just learning. So I come here to learn, and I love to be on the show, and it's amazing to talk about tech and know about tech. And I also I will call all these startups and investors to come together through this show and let us make a lot of money as well in the process using tech. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tushar. Gary, final words from you.
Yeah, sure. So when I remember when I was a kid with my telescope and I was looking at the moon, I asked my mom if anybody lives on the moon, and then I asked my dad. And the question that I still have from that time is, are we alone? And so I deal with a number of astronauts, and I hear a lot of different stories, right? Unidentified aerial phenomenon programs, etc. I'm very, very curious about it. And as Stephen Hawking said, imagine civilizations that could be 100 million years ahead of us. Where would they be? And so I'm fascinated. I've got the curiosity of a kid, and I think all of us out there want to figure out what's out there. And at some point in time, our planet will get to a point where we need to move into other directions. We need to move to other planets, and it's just a phenomenal time for us all. So I'm excited about it. People can reach me, Gary Fowler, LinkedIn, and get me on Facebook. It's great to be here with Tushar and Kartik and Arena and yourself, Terrence. It's great to be here with everybody. It's an exciting time, and 2020 is not going to be 2020 for me. I'm going to forget about it. We used to always say, look back and everything's 2020. That's not a good thing anymore.
Right.
I'm looking forward. So, space is the next frontier, and I'm excited about where we're going as humanity. It's a great time. So great to be here, and I look forward to more shows.
Great. Thank you, Gary. And finally, Amit, over to you. Let us know, what do you think, and help us summarize the show today.
Oh, great show by Tushar, great show by Karthik. I loved everybody's idea here. Everybody's insights are really good. I mean, this is my first show co-moderating with Terrence, and learning a lot of how things flow in this kind of environment. And big people, big ideas, big talks. It is really mind stimulating for me, and I'm looking forward to more of these shows in future. Yeah.
All right. And with that, thank you for everyone watching us and participating on the show. Have a great year, or what it's left of it, and an early Happy New Year to all of you out there.
Happy New Year, Terence.
Happy New
Bye,
Year.
Irina.
Everyone. Happy
Bye,
New Year.
Gary.
Bye.